All right, so we are in the car with the doctor, Dr. Ray Guarendi. And Dr. Ray, it's good to have you with us today.
Thanks, Adam. I appreciate that. Just came in from a flight. It was very high.
It was very high?
We came down to land slow, which is what you want.
Are your arms tired from all the flapping?
I'll tell you what. They don't pay you for those jokes, do they?
They don't. We have to get a new comedy department here. The writing's gone a little downhill. How long have you been a psychologist?
From licensure to now, 46 years.
Okay. And why did you pick psychology?
Accident.
Accident?
Started out in engineering, was at my master's preparing for law school, and decided I'm going to keep going because the master's was in clinical psychology, and I thought, the psychology thing may have some utility to it.
So wait a minute, you went from engineering
Yep.
to law school.
Yep. Oh, I didn't go to law school. I went to pre-law. I was
Pre-law.
Major in pre-law.
Okay, and then to psychology.
Yep. Circuitous, but ultimately.
All right. How'd you meet your wife?
Accident. I was with a friend. It was her brother, and I just happened to be stopping by his house, and she was there. And she was there with her boyfriend, who turned out to be not a good match. And ultimately, I asked her out on a whim because I thought that the girl I wanted to ask out had stood me up on a previous date, but she didn't. But I made a mistake, so I asked her out, and then, bang! 5.5 years later, we were married.
All right, now, where was home? Where did you grow up?
Canton, Ohio, home of Mother Angelica. My parish was St. Anthony Parish, which is Mother Angelica's parish. And being Italian, that was the Italian parish. It was law in Canton. If you're Italian, you had to go to St. Anthony's. That's law.
What did you want to be when you were a kid growing up?
Cowboy.
Not an engineer. Cowboy.
Yeah.
All right, favorite cowboy movie?
Oh, High Noon.
What would you say, of all the calls you receive on The Doctor Is In, what's the number one call you get that people have a question about?
My adult children don't want to have anything to do with me.
Why?
By far. Most of the time, from what I can ferret out, it's religion and morals that the kids have abandoned, and they don't like their parents' religion and morals, don't like their politics. The other part of it is sometimes the parents will admit that they handled situations poorly, and the kids are now carrying resentment. Most of the time, the kids are not religious. Vast majority of the time, the kids are not religious. They've abandoned religion. And so therefore, they have no real compunction about forgiving their parents.
What's the number one thing parents today can do to safeguard their children?
Get rid of the smartphone. Absolutely. If they've got a smartphone, you better put the best security on it you can find. I cannot speak ill enough of smartphones, their effect, their danger, their misshaping of the soul. It's not an accident that the vast majority of kids are leaving the faith. They're being shaped. They're being shaped by the culture that just jumps right inside their ears and their eyes.
It's not necessarily the telephone part, is it? Or is it all the other accessories that come with a smartphone?
It is communication with every part of the world, no matter what, no matter how evil, no matter how much sewage, no matter how much social media can shift and shape the way you look at life, the way you look at God, the way you look at morals. If it were just a phone, okay, you could say, well, you can talk to anybody, anywhere, anytime, which can be a danger. But the more soul misshaping influence is the ability to travel the ugliness of the world.
Switching gears, pardon the pun, but we are in a car. What does a day in the life of Dr. Ray look like?
I am actually probably busier now than I was even 30 years ago. Back then, I spoke maybe 100 to 120 times a year with a clinical practice. And my books were fewer and farther between. Now what's happening is that sometimes my days can be absolutely crazy with contacts, demands for interviews, 100, 200 emails per month on requests. And having to do video interviews in a car, when I just flew in and I wanted to relax, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I have heard that once upon a time you played in a band. Is that accurate?
Played individually. I played in restaurants and supper clubs and sang, nightclubs. Now, at this point, the day of the organ in a restaurant is over, so I play for the folks in the nursing home. So I'll go in there, and I do some singing at restaurants, too.
Does the staff ever mistake you for a resident?
Well, that's been a problem. That is a problem. But I'm old enough that they say he's a little too old to be a resident here.
What's your favorite song to play?
I like the ballads, no question. The ballads of the time of Sinatra and Dean Martin and Tony Bennett and Perry Como. Those were beautifully written. They were poetic. They were thoughtful. They were easy to sing. No question. The music of the last 20 years would be very, very difficult in some respects for me to sing anyway.
What makes Ray Guarendi laugh?
I really appreciate dry, subtle humor. The kind of stuff that makes a comment about life. It's true in its core, but it's enough of an exaggeration to be funny.
Now, as a father of 10, are you a fan of the dad joke?
3 of my children have disowned me. 3 of them will not talk to me. They said no more dad jokes. I think I'm pretty clever with them, and I've used the dad jokes for years to embarrass them in public.
All right, let's see what you've got here. What's your go-to dad joke if I put you on the spot right now?
The doctor said that I had CDO. Actually, he said OCD, but I had to put the letters in the right order.
All right, I like that one. The doctor is in, ladies and gentlemen. The doctor is in. What's the number one lesson you've learned about yourself from all of your years of marriage, parenting, clinical work, radio hosting?
The closer I try to get to God, the more I see wrong with me.
How do you cope with that?
Because, in fact, that's the way you want to be. You can't despair. You recognize that's the natural progression. It's like moving towards a bright light. You want to get to the light, but as you get closer to the light, you see more flaws. And as a psychologist, one of the toughest things I have to deal with is people who do not recognize or will not admit the things they need to improve. And that's common to the human condition.
How did you end up with a radio show on EWTN?
I was very active in secular media. 20-some years ago, some guy came to me and said, "We're starting up a Catholic network. You want to be on the air?" I said, I was so enthused. I said, "No, I don't." At that time, I was a clinician, doing a lot of public speaking. I didn't want to be tied to a microphone. My wife said, "Give it 6 months, Ray. Just see what it does." All right. Do what the women tell you, nobody gets hurt. So when I found out the power of Catholic radio, I couldn't believe it. Well, this particular network was for a profit network, and it went down. It's not like the ones we have now that are just wonderfully successful. Opportunity came up later. Catholic Answers approached me, said, "Would you like to do a show for us?" I knew I better. When I saw the power of Catholic radio, I didn't want to say to our Lord, "Well, it's a pretty good thing, but I'm a busy guy. I got place to go, people to see. I don't have time for you." At the time I started, I think there were 8 Catholic stations, something like that. Inch by inch, with all the wonderful Catholic people adding stations, and Covenant Network's one of the big ones, it just sort of happened. It's been 20 years now. And I remember I used to do Oprah a lot. I used to do Jenny Jones and CBS This Morning. I used to do all those shows. As a matter of fact, I even used to do Springer. But that's before he dove in the sewer, when he was a magazine format. And I always wanted my own TV show. Never happened. So as I got older, I thought, well, that's the end of that. Not going to happen. End of story. A friend of mine who's a producer, we went to EWTN and said, "Here's our idea for a show. You interested?" They must have liked the idea, because Living Right with Dr. Ray's in its 13th season. And so I finally got the TV show, and the interesting thing was, I get to talk about God. If I would have had a secular show, who knows the compromises they would have thrown at me, and I probably would have quit. It's one of the greatest blessings of my life, being Catholic media. Unbelievable. It's something that has transformed the direction of my life, and I couldn't be more grateful.
So we just had a really bad set of directions from the GPS, and we're supposed to be on that road over there. So we're going to find out where we're going to turn around now.
Did you ever notice, I got this theory of communication from the GPS. There is a silent at the end of every direction. Idiot. Turn right. Idiot.
I had a Latin teacher who referred to his GPS as Our Lady of the Dashboard, never leading him astray. He must have had a different GPS. Here's something I've always wondered about you. You're Italian, I know that.
100%.
We've established that.
100%.
Do you cook as well?
My toast has bones in it.
Okay.
Yeah, when I cook, we pray after we eat. So, no, I am terrible Italian male. I can make a curry sometimes.
Sometimes.
One time I did it when my wife didn't come down first, so I did it. I forgot to put the cup underneath it. That wasn't good.
Any questions for me?
Yes. When do we eat?
All right. Well, Ray, thanks for being with us in the car here. First ever car interview. I can't think of a better guest.
You ask a lot of questions. You ask rapid fire questions.
I was ready. When you're driving 70 miles an hour, you have to be ready to go rapid fire. Anyway, always good to be with you, sir.
Alrighty.
And if you...
Is this where the event is?
No, this is not where the event is. This is just, we're going to get you a chance to rest here since you had to ride with me in a car. In the meantime, I'm going to sign off, and we'll catch you on the other side of our YouTube channel here.
Thanks, Adam.